Hello everybody and welcome to Terrance Reviews, back with another Hong Kong content review, and excited to talk about more modern Hong Kong cinema on the big screen. It seems to become a bit more of a rising kind of thing recently, especially within the UK. Recently with obviously Raging Fire not too long ago, Twilight of the Warriors being one of the biggest ones of the year, absolutely phenomenal, and now Stuntman, some very unique, interesting kind of little projects coming outside of Hong Kong, and it's good to see these kind of really talented kind of, up and coming kind of the new wave, new talent of Hong Kong cinema stars, and alongside the old ones as well, kind of collaborating together to make these really interesting, unique movies. And the newest one is Stuntman, released 11th October 2024. It is available on View Odeon cinemas in the UK, very selective locations, very limited time. So if you're one of the lucky ones in the location to check it out for, definitely check it out when you can, because I don't think it's going to be around for much longer. Same with a lot of these films. They tend to be very limited releases and depending on your region. And Stuntman's a very interesting release. It's definitely been advertised and marketed very inappropriately, bannering all the Twilight of the Warriors kind of marketing, but it makes sense in terms of the big Hong Kong movie, international, massive movie. Anyone that's remotely involved in that film, they're going to slap it all over the marketing, the posts, everything. Being the fact the main stars from the film, some of the cinematographers, a lot of the same people have come over to do this film as well. So it makes sense in terms of hey, look, if you like that film, you might like this. However, I have to warn you, very similar to the brilliant reviews already from Fanatical Dragon Johnny and Leon and Shaz from Hong Kong and Beyond. We've done amazing reviews already. Please go and check them out. There will be a link in the description below for that. Please be careful in terms of the trailers and the marketing, because it is not an action film. It is a drama through and through, and it's definitely not one that you're going to be like, oh, I expected to have, beat up kind of, smackdown film. It is not that in the slightest. This is not the Ryan Gosling Fall Guy version of that film, even though it is the closest comparison you probably could say it is to a similarity. I will say, however, Fall Guys, if you're curious about my opinion on Ryan Gosling's Fall Guy, is pretty goddamn terrible, awful film. Hated it. Not a good representation of stunt work, even though the end of the film has the best stuff of the stunt work at the very end and the after credit bits. Don't check it out. It's terrible, awful.
No thanks, bro.
The storyline for Stuntman stars Tung, which is a legendary kind of stunt choreographer, through this film and in real life, being involved in a lot of Jackie Chan productions, a lot of the big kind of Golden Harvest movies. In this film, at the start of the film, basically get to see this kind of retro kind of throwback to kind of like 90s action films. See him when he was much younger. Basically, he is a no-nonsense kind of, director for these stunts, and someone gets very angry, he gets very demanding, and basically he is one of the stuntmen basically says no, something that is kind of frowned upon and something that is very a no-no for a Hong Kong production back in the day, something that we're very familiar with, a lot of behind-the-scenes extras. And in this film, basically one of these stunt people basically can't do this very dangerous stunt off a bridge involving a car, and basically one of the senior ones takes over. Stunt goes very wrong down to technical issues, and basically this character becomes paralyzed. Sam in the film is very traumatized by this and feels very guilty, and cut to about 30 years later, he's much more of an older man now. His daughter is growing up, has a kind of pottery business, and he opens his own clinic. He's been out of the game, he's been out of the industry for quite some time. He's kind of been asked one last time, one last shot, one last movie. This is very much in the vein of those kind of movies where I've got similar kind of examples on the show here, with Viva Erotica, Bowfinger, Eddie Murphy's Dolomite Is My Name. I love movies where they dive into kind of productions and making the films, and just like this idea of the spirit kind of thing, this idea of, things are tough, making movies is tough, but there's also a very human element about these films, the human spirit, and similar to what this film has to offer in terms of the Hong Kong spirit and, making these movies, it has a very specific kind of commentary on that, which I don't think is going to work for everyone, but I think it is very important this film is around and it does exist, and there's a talking point. And I think it's going to be an interesting one to see what the general Hong Kong community takes away from this film, being the fact this is not a, bow down glory to the 80s, 90s of, Hong Kong cinema. It's interesting how this film talks about Hong Kong cinema being dead, and or it's been forgotten, or it's RIP. It's a conversation that's constantly being talked about in terms of modern Hong Kong cinema just not being as good or interesting as it once was. Heavily relying on CGI, doing a very kind of gimmicky, kind of cliche kind of plot lines that you've seen 1,000 times, but nowhere near as interesting or fun or well produced or well put together. There's no kind of energy, as this film has to say a little bit in places. Character drama about people making these films and about the heyday, the golden age of Hong Kong cinema, and putting a bit of a microscope on it, put a bit of a looking glass of that kind of era and what the people behind that era were actually doing, and talking about these issues in a very mature, very grown-up way. It is not worth the cost of a human life. This is this idea of, what is a cost of a movie truly worth? Cost of making these films? What kind of person you need to be to make it back in the day? What kind of position you need to put yourself in terms of a dangerous stunt, in terms of getting that perfect take, and this idea of suffering for your art, which is never the answer. And I love the conversations back and forth between these different generations, between the director and the main star of the film. There's a really amazing cast in this film. All do a really fantastic job of having interesting kind of point of views, which the film very cleverly kind of cuts between each kind of point of view on what's happening. You get to see this kind of old school kind of mentality, very kind of abrupt, egocentric, kind of very kind of obnoxious kind of attitude of, I want to get the shot, I want to get it my way, and he gets really angry, he gets really pissed off, and you get to see this kind of arrogance throughout the entire film, and this kind of entitlement of, I'm going to bring, if you're bringing me onto this set, you're bringing me onto the movies, we're going to keep doing it. And back in my day, we did multiple takes, we did 40 takes on one shot. This idea, the times have changed. There are a lot more safety precautions this time around. There are more budgeting schedules. The way the industry is now in terms of Hong Kong cinema is very different compared to where it was. And there's a really great quote in the film called "The wind is strong, but never let the flame go out." And it's something that really sums up what the film is, this idea of this burning flame, this passion, this energy, to get the absolute best of to give it all you've got. And through this film, he meets Terrance Lau from Twilight the Warriors, and basically he was a stuntman, basically on the way out, essentially he's in his 30s, his brother's opened this kind of delivery service, and he's kind of questioning to be in this industry still, and it's like he's not really getting much work, he's not getting much respect, he's just not really getting much input, and it's a very tough industry to kind of get into, essentially. And he gets an opportunity to be this kind of choreographer, work alongside Lee. Sam Lee's character basically wants this great take. He's really annoyed about his kind of action, sequence being kind of messed with essentially by the main star. So he basically says, hey, look, I want this really good kick. And he does like 10 takes, taking these kicks in the chest constantly over and over and over again. And he's getting really annoyed. He's not getting the take he wants. And it's going over time, it's going over budget. He's getting stressed out. He's throwing walkie-talkies at people. And he's just kind of not getting what he wants from that shot. And even to the point where he's actually replacing the main star with another stunt guy and saying, oh, that even the stunt guy can kick better than you can. Terrance's character has never had that opportunity. He's never got the position to do the most, outrageous stunt or do the most outrageous project, and wants to be creative, wants to be fun, wants to be passionate. And the middle part of this film is truly a sad, kind of bleak, kind of, character study, a deep dive into a persona like Sam and, people that represent him. Many of the people probably like him in that situation, who've made these films, who've had a status and lost everything, in between that, essentially. And there's a great quote in the film basically saying, your films are amazing, but you're a nightmare to work with. And this is reflected quite a lot within his attitude and how he treats people, this idea that anyone's replaceable, doesn't care about the bystanders, doesn't care about people getting hurt or asking permits, and just kind of doing this kind of guerrilla style filmmaking. Ultimately, what this film is trying to say and what the message is trying to get across within kind of, Stuntman is that don't over glorify, don't kind of worship to the ground and beg for these kind of movies to be, the gold standard, because those movies, even though they are amazing, they were probably a fucking nightmare to work with. They were probably a nightmare in terms of production, over budget, multiple takes, stuntman being hurt. There were multiple interviews and behind the scenes extras and commentaries for all the editions talking about making these films and how much of a pain in the ass they were to make. And you probably did have a lot of assholes, you probably had a lot of dangerous stunts, probably a lot of people that were paralyzed, that were nearly killed. Jackie Chan multiple times almost killed for his movies and for his art, suffering for your art. And this idea of within the next generation now, we're going into a new wave of Hong Kong movies, and there is a common ground. We can have the Hong Kong spirit, we can have that fire and that energy. The wind is strong, but don't let the flame go. And that has never been more true in this film. That's what ultimately it's trying to get across. We can all come together. We can find that energy, that spirit of the golden age of Hong Kong cinema, apply it to something like a modern stance with the safety precautions, not putting people's life at risk, not treating people like scum and crap and dismissing them, replacing them, and not caring about, you know, their well-being and getting that perfect shot, but coming together creatively, passionately for not just themselves, but also for the audience as well. And that has never been more true within the third act of this film, which is a true demonstration of just, as mentioned, the Hong Kong spirit and true filmmaking. And it's scrappy, it's DIY. There is a few flaws in the film in terms of the pacing. I think there's a little bit too much melodrama in the wrong places. Some bits do go on for a little bit long. I definitely think there could have been a bit more play in the music, some of the scoring work. However, the intention, the message, and the outcome and the resolve of that, I think, is excellent. And I think it's just the right level of execution to get its point, to get its message. It is a relatively dark, bleak movie in some parts. In some parts, it's kind of a funny kind of, you know, wink and a nod to those kind of movies back in the day that we love. But also it's a reflection of them and the true cost of making those films back in the day. And we can't keep looking back on the past. We have to find a middle ground. We have to find a new way of making these films. And it is proving within Twilight of the Warriors. Definitely an interesting one to say the least. Please comment down below your thoughts and opinions. Please go and check it out in cinemas when you can. Go and support it. And I'd love to know what your conversation is. What is your opinion? What is your take on this film? I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions, guys. Please comment down below. So in the meantime, guys, for the reviews, signing out.